Hi, I'm Matt, and this is Melee, and welcome to Less Dependent Wisconsin. Now, it's a beautiful late May day here in northern Wisconsin. We're going to be doing some container gardening, but I do need to update the channel. If you've been a subscriber of mine, you'll know I had a 15-year-old dog named Major, and unfortunately, I had to put him to sleep on Monday. It was a quick, painless process. I was with him all the way till the end. Very emotional, but now he's in our backyard, buried under this beautiful apple tree. So, anyways, if you remember Melee, she's blind. She was a rescue from the Oahu SPCA back in 2014. So she's about 11, 12 years old, but she's lost her buddy, and she's going to be in a lot more videos with me. So we appreciate you watching, and let's go talk about container gardens. Good girl. So back when I started the channel, one of my first subscribers asked if I would do a video on container gardening. So here we go. If you don't have a yard, but you do have some deck space, 7 to 8 hours of sunlight every day, you can grow some vegetables and flowers on your deck. And it can take fancy equipment, or it can take relatively inexpensive or free equipment. And what I mean by that is, we just got some simple pots here. Got from a friend for free. That'll grow vegetables. This is an old popcorn bucket from a movie theater. Now, it's probably food grade safe, but I can't read the recycling number on there. But regardless, we're just going to grow some marigolds in that. Okay, and a couple other smaller pots. Now, if you've been to Menards or any of the big box stores, you may have seen this Bountiful Harvest self-watering raised grow bed box. Okay, it's about 35 or 40 bucks. It's different than just growing something in a pot. This does not have any holes in the bottom of it. It works through a moisture wicking system. And the easiest thing for drainage is just to have a pot like this. So let's talk about the simple pots first, and then we'll kind of talk about what it takes to put that Bountiful Harvest together. So if your container doesn't have holes, you're going to want to drill some holes in it. I'm using a 1/4 inch drill bit, and I'm just putting 5 holes in the bottom of this one. Hard to do that one-handed, but you get the idea. Okay, so we've got a nice sunny area for our pots. We've got either holes drilled in the bottom of them or holes that came with the pot, and that's for drainage purposes. Now we're going to fill the pots. Okay, on these bigger pots, you don't need to completely fill it with dirt. If you can put something in the bottom, like rocks, or I'm going to use straw in this case, something that'll allow for the drainage. A lot of people do crumple up plastic and put that in the bottom of it. I have done that in years past, but the plastic will break down. So I'm a little apprehensive about getting those, shards of plastic in with my plants. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and put straw in the bottom of these 4, and then I'm going to add a few rocks just to take up a little space in the bottom of these bigger pots. Okay, so I'll do that and be right back. So I've just put straw in the bottom of these. I opted not to use any rocks because I have lots of soil that can go in there, and I still have lots of straw. And I just put a tiny amount of straw in these smaller pots that the marigolds will go in. Okay, but now what I've got is some garden soil. This is specifically flower and vegetable. It's got a slow release fertilizer, and It'll feed your plants up to 9 months. So now we're just going to go ahead and fill these buckets or these pots up with the soil. Go ahead and fill it all the way to the top. You can pack it in there too. It'll loosen up. Nothing too tight, but almost all the way to the top. That's good. And now we'll just repeat the process for these 4 pots. Okay, so as far as planting seeds go, basically you're going to read the instructions on your packet and it'll tell you, you know, how many plants you can have in a container. For example, this is the basil I planted. It says we can have 3 plants per container. One thing about my basil, these seeds are over 3 years old, so I did throw about 60 in there, hoping that we can get a few of them to germinate. Seeds, if you keep them dry and, you know, dark, they should last a while. So I expect the basil to grow. But I've planted basil, cilantro, and dill in these 3, and now I'm going to show you what I do to plant the marigolds. So what I like to do, because you want to plant the marigolds about a 1/4 inch deep, and that was the same with those other ones over there, all the herbs. You're just going to take your finger and make a small indentation, circle, lines, whatever you want to do in your pot. And ultimately we're going to try to get, since this doesn't say how many we can get to grow on here, we're going to try to get 3 to grow out of each pot. So we're going to put in about 9 or so seeds into each pot. And these seeds are very thin, so we'll just drop those in there. Careful not to crush them. Couple more for good luck. The other thing, if you do have a successful germination rate and you can try to take some of the extras out and replant them, that's always a possibility too. So now we're just going to go ahead and lightly cover the seedlings so they're just below the soil level. Pat that all down. Same with this one. Pat that all down. And now we're just going to give everything a good watering. And the seedlings have been planted. So one thing when it comes to maintaining them as seedlings, you're going to want to keep this topsoil pretty moist. Okay, it'll dry out in the sun, so you may want to water these not heavily, but twice a day until the seeds start germinating, just so that top level of soil is moist. And then once they germinate and start growing roots, you can back up on the watering. A good way to tell how moist the soil is, it may look dry on top, but just kind of push away, you know, 1 inch or so, stick your finger in the bottom, and if it's dry, you'll know. And then it's time to water. So, you know, we've got some herbs, we've got some flowers. Another thing you can grow in pots, if you've seen some of my other videos, are potatoes. And these are kind of the inverse of what we did with these pots. We're going to put soil in the bottom 3 or 4 inches of the pot. We put our seed potatoes in there. We put some straw in there for medium, and then as the potatoes keep growing, we're going to add more straw, and then eventually we'll get potatoes out of this bucket. So this is something you can do on your deck. But now we are going to take a look at the more expensive option for gardening, the Bounty Harvest self-watering raised grow bed box. Already I've got some issues with it right out of the gate, but we'll talk about that in a second. I'm going to get these guys watered and we'll move on. Okay, so when you buy the Bountiful Harvest self-watering raised grow bed box, it basically just comes like this. This top piece is actually zip tied down, and so you got to cut that open. It kind of tells you what you're going to need to get this thing started. And to the average person, I feel this is kind of deceiving, but here we go. It tells you you need a 1.5 feet of cubic foot of potting mix. You're going to want dolomite, your seedlings, a scissors, and some water. Well, that doesn't sound too bad. Okay, so when you actually cut the zip ties off, lift the top. This is what the inside looks like. And you get your instruction and growing guide, the wheels, there's a fabric net, and then the watering tube. Okay. And now it tells you you're going to need fertilizer with the dolomite. So let's keep looking at this. And everything you really needed to know is on this page. Okay. You want potting mix and not potting soil, which is what I had bought, thinking potting soil would work just fine. The reason why you want a mix is the mix is going to have some peat moss in it or different types of things to help wick the water. This system doesn't have any drainage holes except for these right here. So if the water does get to that level, it will drain out the sides. Okay, so this is kind of like an aquaponics kit. All right. Getting to the dolomite, my hardware store didn't have dolomite. It's a mixture of calcium and magnesium. Okay, and it's basically referred to as garden lime. I'm just going to have to do without that, and I'm going to be using Miracle Grow, so I believe there's plenty of fertilizer in it. But I did get some organic stuff too. So that's what you need to get this thing started. And then it tells you how to put it all together. The wheels, I'm not going to put the wheels on. It would raise it up about 1 inch, 2 inches or so, but I don't plan on moving this the entire time it's growing. And the reason being is I'm going to do tomatoes in here, and I'm going to use my fence posts or my rail posts on my deck here as supports for them. Okay, so there's our cover. And so basically the first step, it tells you to put your tube in and put that in. The tube really doesn't lock into place at all. We're gonna have to use soil around it to kind of fill it. But you see how it kind of makes a reservoir underneath that's gonna collect water, and then the water will wick up through the soil, especially in the other 3 corners. So I'm going, okay, and then I'll just kind of show you what the instructions say. We're gonna go ahead and add the potting mix. We're gonna skip the dolomite step. We're gonna add more potting mix until it's totally level. We're gonna create a trough for the fertilizer, and I'll kind of do all that. I'll show you. Now what I did have to go out and buy is I had to go out and buy some potting mix. So I got 2 bags of the potting mix. I got a bag of the peat moss to mix in there. So it will help with the moisture levels. And then I did get some organic granular plant food, so we'll put that down as the last step. So I'm going to mix these two in a bucket, get it nice and moist. I'm going to remove the stickers and get those steps set up before I show you how I actually plant the tomatoes. So, alrighty, my 2 bags of potting mix and peat moss didn't get far enough. I got to run to the hardware store, get a few more bags. So, alrighty, the price of this one's just adding up. Okay, so I went out and got another 12 bucks worth of potting soil. If you're like me, you don't read the directions all the way through, step 10 or step 9, we would want to mound the potting mix 2 inches above the top of the grow box. All right, well, that's going to add about another 12, 13 bucks. We're already in for about 40 just on the potting soil and the fertilizer and the peat moss. I mean, this is turning out to be an expensive bed. So anyways, so we're going to do tomatoes in here. Now I've got it positioned where I want it. You can kind of see I've kind of pre-dug the holes a little bit. The suggestion is to put the cover on, cut holes in the cover, and then plant it. I think I'm going to do it differently than that. But you can see I got the fertilizer in the middle. We got that buried. I'm not unopposed to this cover. It's just going to make things a little difficult. So I've got some tomato seedlings that we're going to get planted. So I'm going to get all of this planted, and hopefully it goes pretty easily. Okay, so I finished this up. To me, it seemed easier to plant the tomato first, just because I wanted to get the stems good and buried, so I had a good root system going. Then I kind of put the black cover across the top, cut holes in them. I mean, I don't know. It's a very expensive way to grow stuff on your deck. I mean, you're looking at 40 bucks for the container. You're looking at another 40 bucks, 50 bucks in soils. It's just going to take a while to make this money back. But I did kind of want to show you what's out there. The reservoir system does work. You know, I did fill it with water, and the water came out here to let me know that it was full enough. I did add a stake for that tomato, but it is not 100% stable because you can't drive it far enough. And these guys will kind of go off the fence railings as they grow up. So honestly, I'm not going to suggest this product to you. If you want to give it a shot, you know, maybe I'm going to have some crazy results with it. You'll want to subscribe or check back in when I do the mid-July garden tour, and then I'll kind of do an update at the end of the season so we can compare all of the container gardening. Okay, there it is, my container garden video. So I just showed you the really expensive option. Can't recommend that. But a good bag of potting soil, some used pots, a few seeds, we should get quite a good result out of these containers. You know, growing potatoes in buckets is also an option. Other things we could grow in containers would be peppers, anything you put in the ground, with the exception of like corn. That has to just grow a little differently. I've heard you can do melons and squashes and things like that. Again, a lot of it depends on how much space you have. You know, the larger the plant, the more difficult it's going to be to, you know, keep things under control. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see what happens with these containers as the season goes along, please like and subscribe. To my 200 subscribers now, thank you very much. So anyways, focus on being less dependent. We'll see you soon. Have a great day.